This tale is about someone who embarks on a journey filled with challenges and discoveries. As they face obstacles and make choices, we will explore themes of courage and friendship.
Chapter 1. The Intrigues of Olga. In the bustling city of London, Olga, a master of seduction and deceit, recounted her countless exploits to Melanie, a quiet and unassuming woman, opposite of Daisy, who used to be Bernard's wife. Olga's tales of ensnaring wealthy men, including the temptation to the blissful Bernard's friend Philip, who doubled the wealth of Bernard. Bernard was once a victim of an ambitious marriage of his ex-wife Daisy, and his friend Philip will be being snared by Olga this time, Melanie's friend. Her stories were intoxicating, filled with lavish parties, stolen glances, and whispered promises under moonlit skies. The re-encounter at the cemetery. Philip, Melanie and Olga visited Bernard's grave the first time after a year of Bernard's death. Philip stood quietly by Bernard's grave, lost in his thoughts. The cemetery was a somber place, the air heavy with the scent of fresh earth and the whisper of the wind through the trees. Bernard had been a good friend, a man of quiet strength and deep sorrow. His passing left a void in their lives. As Philip placed a bouquet of white lilies on the grave, he noticed a woman standing a few rows away, her head bowed in silent reverence. She was strikingly beautiful, with an air of elegance that seemed out of place in the solemn surroundings. Philip watched as she placed a single red rose on another grave, her movements graceful and deliberate. Melanie was just staring to both of them. Curiosity piqued. Philip approached her. "Hello," he said softly, not wanting to startle her. "I couldn't help but notice you here. Were you close to Bernard?" The woman looked up, her eyes meeting his. "No," she replied, her voice tinged. Olga leaned back in her chair, a sly smile playing on her lips as she described her latest conquest. Melanie listened, her eyes wide with a mix of fascination and disbelief. She had always been a good listener, and Olga's tales were nothing short of mesmerizing. Each story seemed more outrageous than the last, with Olga weaving a web of charm and deceit to get what she wanted. Philip was different, Olga said, her voice softening. He was wealthy, yes, but there was a sadness about him, a vulnerability that made him an easy target. Melanie felt a pang of unease. It's on her imagination that she has known Philip once as Bernard's business partner, who was a bachelor from the time she met Bernard, a long time ago, and hearing Olga speak of him in such callous terms was unsettling. But she couldn't tear herself away. There was something hypnotic about Olga, something that kept Melanie coming back for more. As the night wore on, Melanie found herself growing increasingly uncomfortable. Olga's stories, once so enthralling, now seemed tainted with a darkness that she couldn't ignore. She wondered what kind of person could live such a life, and what it said about her that she had been so captivated by these tales. Unbeknownst to Melanie, she was about to be drawn into a web of deceit that tied back to a past she had long forgotten. A past that would soon come crashing back into her life with a force she could never have anticipated. Unlikely meeting. After Olga and Philip had their conversation, Melanie stood before Bernard's grave, that late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the cemetery. She also placed a single white rose on the tombstone, her heart heavy with memories of their tumultuous past. As she whispered a silent prayer, the sound of approaching footsteps broke the solemn silence. Turning, she saw Olga, her former nemesis, walking towards her. The tension between them was palpable, a remnant of their shared past filled with betrayal and heartache. "Olga," Melanie greeted cautiously, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Olga's eyes met Melanie's, a mix of sorrow and determination reflecting in her gaze. "Melanie," she replied, her tone surprisingly soft. Unexpected conversations. For a moment neither spoke, the weight of their history hanging heavily in the air. Finally, Olga broke the silence. "I didn't expect to see you here. How are you related to Bernard?" "Bernard meant a lot to both of us," Melanie replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Olga nodded, her gaze drifting to Bernard's grave. "He did. More than I realized." They stood side by side in silence, the past year of betrayal and revenge looming over them. Despite the bitterness, they shared a common grief, a sorrow that transcended their animosity. Opening old wounds. Melanie took a deep breath, deciding to break the ice. "Olga, I know we've had our differences, but maybe it's time we talked. Really talked." Olga's eyes narrowed slightly, but she nodded. Maybe you're right. We've both lost so much. Perhaps it's time to find some closure. They walked together to a nearby bench, where now Philip was watching them. Whispers of the past. Days turned into weeks, and Melanie found herself caught between her mundane life and the thrilling, dangerous world Olga described. Olga's life seemed she felt as the life she had before. One evening as they sat in Olga's opulent apartment, a familiar name slipped from Olga's lips: Jack. Melanie's heart skipped a beat. Jack was quite the challenge, Olga said, sipping her wine. He was smart, resourceful, and incredibly stubborn. But in the end, even he couldn't resist me. Melanie's mind raced. Jack was someone she had known intimately, someone who had once been her anchor in a stormy sea. Hearing Olga speak of him in the same breath as her other conquests filled Melanie with a mix of dread and curiosity. Tell me more about Jack, Melanie urged, trying to keep her voice steady. Olga raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued by Melanie's interest. Why the sudden curiosity? She asked with a sly grin. Melanie forced a smile. He just sounds different. More interesting. Olga leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. Oh, he was different, all right. He was my greatest triumph and my deepest regret. As Olga spun her tale, Melanie's mind was a whirlwind of emotions. She knew she had to find Jack, to uncover the truth about his involvement with Olga, and to protect him from her schemes. But first, she needed to understand the full extent of Olga's web of deceit, the hidden letters. Driven by a newfound determination, Melanie began to dig into her own past. She searched through old letters and photographs, trying to piece together the connections between Olga, Jack, and Bernard and the mysterious man Philip. One night, she stumbled upon a bundle of letters hidden in an old jewelry box. The letters were from Jack, written during a time when he and Melanie had been deeply in love. They spoke of dreams and promises, but also of a shadow that had fallen over their relationship. A woman named Olga. Melanie's hands trembled as she read Jack's words, feeling the pain and confusion he had endured after knowing Daisy's interest on his wealth. In one letter, Jack described how Olga had manipulated him, playing on his insecurities and fears. He had tried to resist, but her allure was too powerful. Melanie's heart ached as she realized the extent of Olga's cruelty. The relationship of Olga and Jack began after Jack left Daisy and Philip, as the wealthiest man knew all the story since Bernard shared all his aches to Philip, the bachelor. Determined to confront Olga, Melanie arranged to meet her at a cafe. She needed answers, and she needed to know why Olga had targeted the people she loved. Confrontation and confession. The cafe was bustling with activity, but Melanie's focus was solely on Olga. As she approached their table, Olga's eyes narrowed, sensing that something was amiss. Since Philip is the wealthiest businessman, he has guards monitoring Melanie's life and journey. Melanie, what a surprise, Olga said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Enough with the games, Olga, Melanie replied, her voice steady. I know what you did to Jack. I know how you manipulated him. Olga's smile faded, replaced by a cold, calculating look. And what are you going to do about it? She asked, leaning back in her chair. I'm going to expose you, Melanie said, her resolve unwavering. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. Olga laughed, a harsh, mirthless sound. You think you can bring me down? I've been playing this game for years, Melanie. You have no idea what you're up against. Melanie's eyes blazed with determination. I'm not afraid of you, Olga. And I'm not alone. Jack, Bernard's soul, and I will bring you to justice. For a moment, Olga seemed taken aback, but then her expression hardened. Do your worst, Melanie. But remember, I always have the upper hand. Still, Philip's people's eyes are on every situation. The unexpected ally. Determined to bring Olga to justice, Melanie sought out Jack. She found him living in a small apartment on the outskirts of the city, a shadow of the man she once knew. Jack, we need to talk, Melanie said, her voice gentle but firm. Jack looked up, his eyes filled with pain. Melanie, I didn't expect to see you again. Olga's been hurting people for too long after the death of Bernard. Melanie couldn't remember a named Bernard yet on her mind. Melanie said, sitting beside him. We need to stop her. Jack nodded, his resolve strengthening. I know. I've been trying to gather evidence, but it's not enough. We need more. Together, they began to piece together the puzzle, gathering testimonies from other victims and compiling evidence of Olga's schemes. Their efforts were relentless, driven by a shared desire for justice. One evening, as they reviewed their findings, a knock on the door startled them. It was John, looking tired but determined. "I heard you were looking into Olga," he said, his voice steady. "I want to help." Melanie and Jack exchanged a surprised glance. With John's support, their case against Olga grew stronger. They were no longer alone in their fight. Chapter 2: Bonds Beyond Blood. Several months had passed since that fateful meeting at Bernard's grave, and Melanie and Olga's tentative friendship had begun to flourish. Melanie, feeling a newfound sense of peace, decided it was time to visit her daughter, Nicole, and her grandchildren, whom she hadn't seen in far too long. Melanie pulled up to Nicole's house, her heart racing with anticipation and a hint of anxiety. She had always been protective of her family, especially after all the turmoil she had endured when she was Daisy. Stepping out of the car, she took a deep breath and walked to the front door. Homecoming. Nicole opened the door, her face lighting up at the sight to Melanie. "Melanie, it's so good to see you," she exclaimed, pulling Melanie into a warm hug. Melanie hugged her back, seeking permission. Melanie sat with Nicole in the living room, the soft hum of the television providing a gentle background noise. The children were playing in their rooms, giving Melanie the opportunity to have an important conversation with her daughter. "Nicole, there's something I need to discuss with you," Melanie began, her tone serious but gentle. Nicole's brow furrowed with concern. "What is it, Melanie?" Melanie took a deep breath. "I've been working on resolving some issues from my past, issues that could affect your family's safety. Olga has been a threat. She's been watching us, and I need to ensure that she can't pose a threat to you or the kids. There's also Philip, who's also watching everything." Nicole's eyes widened. "Melanie, what are you saying?" "I need to leave for a few months to handle this," Melanie explained. "It's the only way to make sure you and the kids are safe. I promise I'll be back as soon as I can." Nicole was silent for a moment, processing the information. "Will you be safe, Melanie?" she finally asked, her voice trembling. "I will," Melanie assured her. "I have Jack's support and some reliable contacts. I just need you to trust me on this." Nicole nodded slowly and thinking why Melanie is making trouble on her family. "Okay, Melanie. I trust you. But please be careful." The next day, Melanie gathered her things and prepared for the journey ahead. She explained the situation to her grandchildren, Bernadette and Giles, reassuring them that their grandmother would return soon and that they were safe with their mother. "I'll be back before you know it," she promised, hugging them tightly. "You're my brave little ones, and I know you'll take good care of your mom while I'm gone." As she loaded her bags into the car, Olga was watching on her family. Chapter 3. The journey begins. Melanie in silence for a while, each lost in her thoughts. As she neared her destination, a secluded cabin where she planned to strategize, Melanie broke the silence and contacted Jack this time. Jack mentioned Philip, his boss, on their phone conversation about him visiting every few months in the cemetery. Melanie seemed ignores the name as her memory is still slightly shattered. Melanie felt a mix of anxiety and determination. She knew this journey would be challenging, but she was resolved to protect her family at all costs. Chapter 4. Unlikely affection. Olga's life had taken an unexpected turn. After Philip's apprehension, it became clear that his intentions, though misguided, were rooted in a twisted sense of love and loyalty to Bernard. During the investigation, Olga found herself drawn to Philip's complex character, his vulnerability revealing a side she hadn't seen before. Several weeks after his release, Philip visited Bernard's grave, seeking solace and reflection. To his surprise, he found Olga there, standing quietly, lost in her thoughts. "Olga," Philip said softly, not wanting to startle her. Olga turned, her eyes meeting his. "Philip, I didn't expect to see you here." "I come here often," he admitted. "It's the only place where I feel close to Bernard." Shared grief. Over the next few weeks, Olga and Philip began to meet regularly at the cemetery. Their shared grief over Bernard's loss created an unexpected bond between them. They would talk for hours, reminiscing about the past, their regrets, and the paths their lives had taken. Bernard always believed in loyalty, Olga said one day, her voice tinged with sadness. It's ironic how our loyalty to him led us down such different roads. Philip nodded. I was wrong to act the way I did. I thought I was protecting his memory, but I was only causing more harm. Olga placed a hand on his arm. We can't change the past, but we can choose how we move forward. Maybe it's time we both found some peace. Blossoming connection. As the weeks turned into months, Olga and Philip's relationship deepened. What started as mutual mourning grew into genuine affection. They found comfort in each other's presence, their visits to Bernard's grave becoming less about sorrow and more about healing. One evening, as the sun set behind the cemetery, casting a golden glow over the tombstones, Philip turned to Olga. I never thought I'd find someone who understands this pain, who shares it with me. Thank you, Olga. Olga smiled, her heart swelling with a warmth she hadn't felt in years. We've both been through so much. Maybe we can help each other find a new beginning. A new chapter. Olga and Philip decided to take their relationship beyond the cemetery. They started meeting outside, going for walks in the park, having dinners and enjoying each other's company. Their bond grew stronger, transforming their shared grief into a foundation for something beautiful which both forgot the schemes they had to one another. Philip's scheme is to protect Melanie's family as his promise to Bernard because of his big debt to Bernard that brought him to bankruptcy, and Jack knows all these, and he's going to pay back Bernard by protecting his family, and Olga taking Philip's wealth because Bernard is one of her childhood lover did not bring her to marriage and wanted to take revenge on Daisy, who took his happiness from Bernard and started her revenge to Jack, and found Melanie now with shattered memory whom she knew. Melanie and Daisy are one, however. Melanie doesn't know the truth yet about her life. One day, as they strolled through a blooming garden, Philip took Olga's hand. I know we've both made mistakes, but I believe we deserve happiness. I want to be with you, Olga. Truly. Olga looked into his eyes, seeing sincerity and hope. I want that too, Philip. We can build something good together. Chapter 5. Unveiling Intentions. Melanie and Jack had settled into a comfortable routine. Their strategies are strengthening day by day. However, Melanie couldn't shake the nagging feeling that Olga's sudden bond with Philip might have ulterior motives. Over dinner one evening, Melanie shared her concerns with Jack. Jack, I've been thinking about Olga and Philip, she said, her brow furrowed with worry. I know Olga has been supportive, but something doesn't feel right. I think she might be manipulating Philip. Jack took her hand, his eyes filled with concern. What do you mean? I believe Olga's trying to use Philip to get to us, Melanie explained. I need to find out more about her intentions. Jack nodded. If Olga has any plans to harm us and your family, we need to uncover them. Let's start by gathering more information. The investigation. Melanie and Jack devised a plan to monitor Olga's activities without raising suspicion. Jack, leveraging his network of contacts, managed to obtain records of Olga's recent communications and transactions. They also kept a close eye on her interactions with Philip. Days turned into weeks as they meticulously pieced together the puzzle. One evening, Jack approached Melanie with a folder filled with evidence. I think we've found something, he said, his voice tense. Melanie opened the folder and examined the documents. Her eyes widened as she read through the emails and financial records. Olga's been funneling money into a private account. And look at these messages. She's been planning something big. Chapter 6. A New Threat. Olga and Philip's relationship had deepened, and with it, Philip's trust in Olga became almost absolute. Philip, consumed by his love for Olga, failed to notice the subtle manipulation she was still orchestrating. He missed the signs that Melanie's family might be in danger once again. Olga, driven by a hidden agenda, had begun to shift Philip's finances into her private account, all while planning a more sinister scheme. She knew that Melanie's granddaughter, Bernadette, was about to celebrate her birthday, and saw an opportunity to strike. This might be the second bankruptcy of Philip. Birthday plans. Nicole was busy planning Bernadette's birthday party, ensuring every detail was perfect. Melanie, happy to be reunited with her family, was helping with the preparations. They decided to host the party at a local park, inviting friends and family for a joyous celebration. Unbeknownst to them, Olga was meticulously plotting in the background. She had arranged for two men to pose as party entertainers, their real mission being to kidnap Bernadette and Giles. The The birthday party. The day of the party arrived, and the park was filled with laughter and excitement. Children ran around, playing games and enjoying the festivities. Melanie and Nicole watched with joy as Bernadette blew out her birthday candles, surrounded by loved ones. Meanwhile, Olga, feigning an emergency, kept Philip occupied. She made sure he was far away from the park, unable to intervene or notice what was unfolding. The kidnapping attempt. As the party continued, the hired men disguised as clowns blended into the crowd. They approached Bernadette and Giles, offering to show them a special trick. Trusting the entertainers, the children followed them towards a secluded area of the park. Just as the men were about to lead the children away, Melanie noticed Bernadette and Giles missing from the group. Her heart raced with panic as she scanned the area, finally spotting the men with her grandchildren. "Nicole! Something's wrong!" Melanie shouted, running towards the men. Nicole followed, her face pale with fear. "Bernadette! Giles! Intervention!" At that moment, Philip, who had grown suspicious of Olga's sudden urgency, decided to leave and head to the park. He arrived just in time to see Melanie confronting the men. His instincts kicked in and he rushed to help. "Stop! Let them go!" Philip shouted, grabbing one of the men.
The scene quickly drew attention, and other parents at the park intervened, helping to restrain the men until the police arrived. The children were safe, but the shock of the event left everyone shaken. Confrontation with Olga. Philip, now fully aware of Olga's deception, confronted her. "Olga, how could you do this? I trusted you." Olga, cornered and desperate, tried to explain. "Philip, I was trying to protect us, to secure our future." "By kidnapping children? By transferring my money without my knowledge?" Philip's voice was filled with hurt and anger. "This ends now." Olga's facade crumbled as Philip walked away, leaving her to face the consequences of her actions alone. Chapter 7: Rebuilding Trust. Philip immediately went to Melanie's house, where Nicole and the children were recovering from the traumatic event. He approached Melanie with a look of deep regret. "Melanie, I'm so sorry. I should have seen what Olga was planning. I let my guard down." Melanie nodded, her expression softening. "Philip, thank you for helping save Bernadette and Giles. We'll need to be more vigilant from now on." Confrontation. Armed with the evidence, Melanie and Jack decided it was time to confront Olga. They arranged to meet her at a neutral location, a quiet cafe where they could talk privately. When Olga arrived, she seemed unaware of their intentions. "Olga, we need to talk," Melanie began, her tone firm. "We know about your plans. We've seen the messages and the financial transfers. What are you trying to do?" Olga's eyes widened, but she quickly composed herself. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, though her voice betrayed a hint of nervousness. Jack leaned forward. "We know you've been using Philip to get to us. We have the proof, Olga. It's over." Unraveling the scheme. Realizing she was cornered, Olga sighed and lowered her gaze. "All right, you're right. I did have a plan. But it's not what you think. I wanted to make amends with Philip and use his influence to secure our safety. I didn't mean to harm you or your family." Melanie shook her head. "Olga, your actions have consequences. Philip doesn't know the full extent of your schemes. You need to come clean to him." Olga nodded slowly. "You're right. I've made mistakes. I'll tell Philip everything. But please understand, I never meant for things to go this far." Revealing the truth. Later that evening, Olga sat with Philip, her heart heavy with guilt. "Philip, there's something I need to tell you," she began, her voice trembling. "I haven't been entirely honest with you." Philip looked at her, concern etched on his face. "What do you mean, Olga?" "I had a plan to use our relationship to get close to Melanie and Jack," Olga confessed. "I thought it would help us, but I realize now how wrong I was. I've hurt you and them in the process." Philip's expression hardened, but he listened quietly. "Why, Olga? Why would you do this?" Tears welled in Olga's eyes. I was desperate. I thought I could protect us. But I've only caused more pain. I'm so sorry, Philip. Redemption. Philip stood up, his emotions swirling. Olga, I don't know if I can forgive you right now. But I appreciate your honesty. We need to sort this out. Moving on. With Olga out of their lives, Philip, Melanie, and Jack worked together to ensure the safety of their families. Philip began the arduous task of untangling his finances from Olga's schemes, determined to make. The following day, Philip met with Melanie and Jack. Olga told me everything, he said, his voice filled with remorse. I'm sorry for any pain I've caused. I want to make things right. Melanie nodded. Thank you, Philip. We all have a lot to work through, but the first step is acknowledging the truth. With the truth now out in the open, Melanie, Jack, Olga, and Philip began the slow process of rebuilding trust. Olga worked hard to prove her sincerity, gradually mending the fractured relationships. Chapter 8: The Final Confession. The tension in the air was palpable as Olga stood in the living room of Melanie's home, facing Melanie, Jack, and Philip. Her eyes were filled with a mix of defiance and resignation. The time had come for her to reveal the truth behind her actions. Melanie, Olga began, her voice trembling. There's something you need to know about why I did all of this. It's about Daisy. You see, Daisy was Bernard's wife. She poisoned my life with her greed and manipulation. She's the one who sent me on this path of revenge. Melanie's eyes widened in shock. Daisy? But why? Because Daisy was you, Melanie, Olga said, her voice cracking. You were Bernard's wife, and when he died, I couldn't stand the thought of you living happily. I blamed you for everything that went wrong in my life. Uncovering the past. Melanie's mind raced as memories from the past flooded back. She had always known she had a complex history with Bernard, but she had never imagined it would lead to such deep-seated hatred. I don't understand, Melanie stammered. Why go to such lengths? Because you had everything, Melanie, Olga replied bitterly. You had Bernard's love, his wealth, and a new family. I wanted to destroy what you cherished the most, to make you suffer as I did. Philip, standing beside Melanie, felt a surge of anger and regret. Olga, you manipulated me, used me. Why? I needed your money, Philip, Olga admitted. I wanted to become as rich as Daisy, to have the power she wielded over me. But it was all for nothing. My revenge consumed me, and I lost everything. The revelation. Jack, who had remained silent, finally spoke up. Olga, your actions were driven by hatred and jealousy like Daisy. But what you didn't realize is that love and family are what matter most. Not money, not power. Tears streamed down Olga's face. I see that now. I've ruined lives, caused so much pain. I'm sorry. Melanie stepped forward, her heart heavy with empathy and sorrow. Olga, I forgive you. We all have our demons, our regrets. But we can choose to let go of the past and move forward. A new beginning. Nicole, who had been listening quietly, approached her mother. Nicole, the first time called Melanie Mom, completely forgave her and forget what happened in the past with her father Bernard because she also hated her mom before. Mom, you've been through so much. But you've also shown incredible strength. I'm proud of you. Melanie's eyes filled with tears as she embraced her daughter. Thank you, Nicole. I love you. The room was filled with a sense of closure and healing. Philip and Jack, having learned from their experiences, vowed never to be deceived by appearances again. Honoring the past. To mark the end of their tumultuous journey, Melanie, Jack, Philip, Olga, and Nicole with her children decided to visit Bernard's grave together. They wanted to honor his memory and find peace in their hearts. At the cemetery, they stood before Bernard's tombstone, the sun casting a warm glow over the scene. Melanie placed a bouquet of flowers at the grave, her heart filled with both sorrow and hope. Bernard, she whispered, we've come a long way. Your memory has guided us through dark times. But now, we're ready to move forward, together. Olga, standing beside Melanie, felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had confessed her sins and found a path to redemption. Philip and Jack stood in silent contemplation, reflecting on the lessons they had learned. Nicole, holding her mother's hand, smiled. We're a family, and nothing can break us apart. A celebration of life. After their visit to the cemetery, the group returned to Melanie's home for a quiet celebration. They shared stories, laughter, and tears, cherishing the bonds they had forged through their trials. As the evening drew to a close, Melanie looked around at the faces of those she loved. She felt a deep sense of gratitude and contentment. They had faced their darkest fears and emerged stronger, united by their love and resilience. We've been through so much, Melanie said, raising a glass. But we've come out the other side, stronger and wiser. Here's to new beginnings, to family, and to the memory of those we've lost. They clinked their glasses, a symbol of their shared journey and the hope for a brighter future. In that moment, they knew they had finally found peace and that their story, though filled with pain and redemption, was ultimately one of love and forgiveness. Though the journey was challenging, it marked the beginning of a new chapter for all of them. They learned that even in the face of betrayal and mistrust, redemption and forgiveness were possible. As Melanie and Jack watched Melanie's grandchildren play in the backyard, they felt a renewed sense of love and hope again in a better version of Daisy. They had faced their darkest fears and emerged stronger, their relationship bond unbreakable. And while Olga and Philip navigated their complicated relationship, they too found solace in the promise of a better future, built on honesty and understanding. Telling Melanie. As their relationship solidified, Olga felt the need to be honest with Melanie. She invited Melanie to a quiet cafe, hoping to explain everything. What is it, Olga? Melanie asked, sensing the gravity of the conversation. Olga took a deep breath. Philip and we've started seeing each other. It wasn't planned, but it happened. I understand if you're upset. Melanie's eyes widened in surprise, but she quickly composed herself. Olga, you've both been through so much. If you found happiness together, then I'm happy for you. Just promise me you'll both stay on the right path and promise not to do the same mistakes. You did that. I also regretted my entire life. Olga reached out and squeezed Melanie's hand. We will. Thank you, Melanie. Moving forward. With Melanie's blessing, Olga and Philip embraced their future together. They continued to visit Bernard's grave, but their visits were now filled with hope and the promise of new beginnings. They honored his memory not by dwelling on the past, but by building a life together that he would have been proud of. Olga and Philip's love story, born out of shared grief and redemption, became a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. They had found each other in the most unlikely of places, and together, they faced the future with strength and hope. As they stood hand in hand before Bernard's grave, they knew he was smiling down on them, his legacy living on in their love and their commitment to a brighter tomorrow. Melanie and Jack rekindled their romance, their bond stronger than ever. Philip, too, found peace, his melancholy replaced by a sense of purpose. Together, they vowed to move forward, to live their lives free from the shadows from any deceit. The city of London, once a backdrop for intrigue and manipulation, now became a place of hope and new beginnings. And as they walked through the streets, hand in hand, they knew that they had overcome the challenges of the past. The future was theirs to shape, and they were ready to face it together.